Oh, yeah. I found them much better on the computer, too, because I can actually read what I wrote in an earlier speech. Whereas before they'd be like, off this argument, I'm like, yeah, I know I wrote that somewhere, so I'm just kidding.
You ready here, kids?
I can't really type or, do very much with a computer. And I don't actually have one, so not pulling so much more.
You ready to start?
Yeah. Going this first? Yeah.
Watch the kid right there. I was looking up.
Okay.
Okay. Welcome to my world. Since birth, I have been taught to listen and obey and struggle to feel more than what society wants me to be. When I was born, my grandfather was disappointed because he wanted a boy. I was taught that I'm a woman, hence I must follow rules and expectations. My family and my home is temporary because my real identity occurs when I get married and bear children. I need to focus on cooking, cleaning, nurturing because that is a true test of being a woman. Males in my family can participate in risky adventures of life, but I must be home when the sun goes down, cover my body from head to toe, because my chest and my legs are an invitation, and must have a male with me if I'm walking on the streets. I must fear a man talking to me, liking me, loving me, until and unless my parents arrange my marriage. I must learn how to serve food and be hospitable, because one day people will come to my house to see if they like me, test me, and want me as a wife or a daughter-in-law. I must be shy, look down, must be innocent, must be a virgin, must not talk back ever, because society might disown me and my husband might leave me. I must live in every condition he keeps me and must fast and pray for his long life, must forget my ambitions and be serving to him and prove my loyalty to him. Since 10 years old, I have been learning to manage my household, but like the following story of Yamuna, no one has told me about my sexuality. Will it hurt? Will I like it? Will it be for me and my love, or will it just be for him? Yamuna explains, my first contact with him came after the wedding. That's when I realized what a horror the whole thing was, that it's not the easiest thing being in a hotel. I mean, being with someone you don't even know that you're starting off a new thing with. He started off very aggressively. I mean, the whole act was like, I almost felt like I was raped or something like that. He knew that there was no response from me, but he continued, obviously. He just took it to be shyness. I felt violated. The way he treated my breast, not only was it painful, it was very painful. I was without any sexual experience. It's not as if one had read enough, one had talked enough of these things to know what things are like. Many people do not consider spousal rape to be gender violence, especially South Asians, because they believe that they have the right over their woman's body. Many women are sexually inexperienced when they get married and are emotionally unprepared for the wedding night. Although women often know that they will engage in sexual intercourse, they anticipate that sex will at least fulfill some need for intimacy. If the wedding night becomes sex without intimacy, many women like Yamuna feel empty, lonely, and objectified. The sexual act thus becomes one in which women are silenced, controlled, and subordinated. Often rape occurs in this first night, with the husband justifying the woman's silence as shyness. Women often keep silent out of shock, dismay, and because they have been socialized that a woman's ability to place her husband's need before her own is a glue that holds their marriage together. In this sense, sex becomes an important mechanism of power and social control in an abusive relationship and is used by men as a way of attaining and maintaining a relationship of dominance and subordination that is central to the patriarchal order. Hence, men sometimes use other women to intimidate and manipulate their wives, as by portraying American women as more sexually desirable. This type of characteristic forces the wife to comply to her husband's demands sexually. If the wife questions her husband for anything, it leads to abuse. Tara explains, he always had affairs. I found out about one of the girls because she called at home and she was looking for him. Who is this? This is his wife. Oh my God, but he told me that he was divorced. She started telling me the things that he had promised her, that he was going to marry her, that he is divorced. His sister is living with him, with his little boy. I said it is not his sisters. None of his sisters are here right now, but we have a little boy. After he came back, she called again, so he went into the room. Every time anybody called, he would close the bedroom door. I was feeding my son, and his father was also sitting there when he came out. He came and grabbed me by the hair and said, "How dare you tell that woman that you are my wife? What am I supposed to tell her? You tell her right now that you are not my wife." I can't do that. His father was sitting there not saying anything. He started really abusing me. I was running from one room to another, trying to escape. Then I went into the bathroom and closed the door. He broke the door. He grabbed me and pushed me into the tub. My son was 4.5 years old. He was watching, standing by the bathroom door, but there was no feeling there for me. He was just staring. I was already hurt, like a cut on my head, and was bleeding. He finally called me on the phone, grabbed my hair by one hand, and another hand was on the throat, and said, "Now tell that woman." He dialed the number. This lady was on the phone, so I said, "Mary, he is my husband, holding me by the neck and asking me to tell you that I am not his wife." He got so angry that he hung up the phone and started abusing me. That night, he abused me all night. He ripped my nightgown and pushed me down on the sofa in the living room and sexually abused her in front of her child and father-in-law. like Tara fight back in the face of violence by using many different strategies such as talking back, fighting back, avoiding, complying, etc. Yamuna resisted through screaming when her husband tried to rape her. She recalls that all the time I was thinking of how to get out of there. Then one night, when he initiated sex, I just couldn't take it. I just screamed. I started getting hysterical. I just started screaming, and that frightened him a little bit. I think I said, "Don't come anywhere near me." I think I must have been down on the floor. I think he did not know what was happening. He called his brother, and that's when things got out of his control, and I guess he was helpless. The brother was upset and called my parents, and that's what started the ball rolling. Battered women resist violence in a number of ways, and their daily acts are survival, such as the production of life narratives. Christian Mishu explains that producing narratives allows battered women to have the autonomy that they were denied during their oppression. This autonomy is expressed through resistance, self-direction, and imposition of will. Producing these narratives allows women to break that silence they have been told to maintain. This type of resistance challenges the patriarchal norms that suppress them. Furthermore, having authorship allows abused women to write their own history as a way of gaining control over lives. Margaret Abraham emphasizes on the need to reconceptualize the problem of the domestic violence. She says that differences in power, privilege, and control have been a part of early analysis of domestic violence, must be viewed as additionally constructed around the multiple axes of citizenship, ethnicity, language, religion, race, class, and gender at the individual, interpersonal, and institutional level. We must understand these intersections in order to understand how violence destroys women's body and psyche. Especially our speeches in this debate round challenge the current assumptions in the status quo and resist patriarchy. Speaking in concrete terms in dialogues with the oppressed is crucial praxis. Abraham argues that our transformational politics must draw upon an additive and interconnected paradigm that allows us to link visions and reality, even when practiced on the context of organizations. Debate opens up space for discussing tactics and strategies to address and possibly end the violence against women. Abraham further elaborates that rather than exclude ourselves or be excluded, we should use mainstream arenas as sites for challenging the status quo in multiple ways. Using participatory activities like debate allows us to creatively challenge existing normative orders such as the one of marriage and familiar roles that appear in the narrative. As a collective, we must work within organizations that empower us, which can effectively contribute to the movement to end violence against women. For example, as seen in these narratives, women either find courage to leave their relationships or get help from family, friends, or organizations such as South Asian Women Organization. She further explains that we need to work together to bridge the gap between what we say and the actualities. Our transformative politics must entail a space for both individual and the collective empowerment. Ultimately, it is only by linking visions with pragmatism in our individual and collective efforts that we can effectively seek to end all forms of violence against women. Debate will produce education. What sort of education we want from debate is for us the foremost question. We believe that the purpose of debate is liberating the oppressed people. First, we need to make the debate accessible by speaking the language of the oppressed. In words of prayer, often educators and politicians speak are not understood because their language is not tuned to the concrete situations of the people they address. In order to communicate effectively, educators and politicians must understand the structural conditions in which the thought and the language of the people are dialectically framed. Second, as Kim explains, that we must use collectivity to transform into a space for community building that empowers us to create change by producing awareness. By understanding this pedagogy, we can transform academic institutions that produce knowledge for us and our daily lives. Our purpose and praxis leads us to affirm the topic, although our interpretation of the topic will differ from some. Because of the Morrison decision, Commerce Clause did not consider spousal rape to be a crime. We overruled Morrison in the system that prevents us from recognizing spousal rape as a crime. The topic asks a question that can be answered in the real lives of people rather than the imaginary world of fiat. We believe that USSC is not 9 people, but a symbol of power that we all have a role in creating. Decisions a group of 9 make can be nullified by resistive discourse. Hence, we believe that deploying narratives in political debates like this one can create a body of discourse, education, and knowledge that counteracts violence against women. We do not defend or take any legislative action, but we do not summarily reject legislative action either. This is the real world in-round discursive impact. Debates create discourse in totality and cannot be reduced to affirmations or rejections of a 2-line sentence. Hence, this was the story of Yamuna and Tara, South Asian immigrant women like Frisia and myself.
So, how do you make debate, how do you create a dialogue with the oppressed?
We believe narratives are a very good way of creating dialogue with the oppressed. We believe even our stories and our social location is also what opens the door for that dialogue.
Right, but how are you reading those narratives, creating, the same kind of dialogue with those oppressed people?
Definitely. Narratives are written by those people who share their stories. Narratives are a way where we interact.
Do they know that you're reading their stories?
Yes, these stories are published in
but do they know that you're reading these stories? How are they establishing a dialogue with you by you just reading them in a
Because we are also 2 Indian women who share a lot of similarities with these people.
We've
talked to our aunts, my mother, my grandmother.
Sure,
go through
you're
these
creating
problem-solving.
a dialogue with other people, but how is that creating the same kind of dialogue that you say is necessary to create a dialogue with the oppressed? If they do not know that you are trying to create this dialogue with the oppressed,
Because narratives are a form of dialogue. When people
is it
talk,
a form of dialogue with
Yes.
the person that wrote the narrative?
Yes,
How are
they-
you? How
because narratives are when the person writes their book and publishes their book and works in organizations such as South Asian women's organizations, that is an attempt to,
They're
spread this
dialoguing with
knowledge.
you, right? But how
Yes.
are you dialoguing back to them?
What do you mean? How are we dialoguing?
You say that it has to be a dialogue. You
Yes,
are doing
you're
a
assuming
one-sided
that we don't
dialogue.
really talk to people outside.
It's not only
Sure.
Lorena and Tara, we're
So
talking about
does this
other
mean that
women
you-
within our family that we also create a dialogue with. We create dialogues with ourselves
Okay.
Can I
because
ask
we
you a
believe
question?
that we
Is
face
this
the
a
same
reason that
oppression.
because you have like sort of talked to your family about this, is that a reason that like you've created the dialogue, or is it because of the stuff in this round that you've done? Like,
I
is the
don't
family?
understand your question at all.
Well, I mean, you just said that you create this dialogue because I mean you talk to like your family and other people. Why is that a reason that you should like?
Win, or
It's a question of methodology. We're not going to say vote for us because two women went and talked to somebody. We're going to say vote
Sure.
for us because this is important, because these voices, get marginalized and become invisible
Okay.
in dominant norms, and we think that's bad,
you say the debate should be about liberating the oppressed, right?
right?
So should the negative be forced to argue that we shouldn't liberate the oppressed?
No, definitely
So
not.
how can the negative engage you in these types of debates?
Is this a ground question?
Sure.
You can have different methodologies. You can bring your political framework and,
What
provide-
does any of this mean? Sorry,
Look, you can talk about, that we shouldn't focus on intersectionality, that's bad. You can, have a counter methodology. You can say, you can say that conscious racism is bad. You can talk about public-private dichotomy. I think there's a lot of ground within there. You can say narratives are bad.
but how does that? I mean, you'll always say that we're still trying to create a stance to open up for the oppressed, right? So how does the negative engage in that same kind of debate as to why we should liberate
I
the
mean,
oppressed?
we do provide a methodology. I mean, we're not saying that vote for us because we read narratives or pity us because of that. I mean, you can provide a counter methodology and argue why that creates better liberation.